Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, capital punishment. The prosecution asked that the captain of the Sewol-ho ferry face the death penalty for abandoning ship, while hundreds remained on board in peril. Peace and cooperation will be the theme of a forum that gets started this Tuesday in South Korea. Representatives from all members of the six-party talks will be present, save for one. North Korea never responds to its invitation. And the Ebola fears in America's most populous city continue to mount. The latest, a 5-year-old boy who recently traveled to West Africa is hospitalized in New York City after developing a fever. Daybreak begins now. Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning here in Seoul. I'm Scott Thompson filling in for Mark Broome, and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, Korean prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for the captain of the ferry that sank back in April, a tragedy that left more than 300 people dead or missing. Kwon So-ah reports on the latest developments in the trial of the captain and his crew.
The prosecution has spoken. It is seeking the strongest punishment possible in Korean law for Sewol-ho ferry captain Lee Jun-seok, the death penalty. They have also demanded life in prison for 3 key crew members and 15 to 20 years in prison for 11 others. More than 6 months have passed since the tragic Sewol-ho ferry accident left more than 300 passengers dead or missing. And after deliberating through 29 trial sessions and poring over 20,000 pages of evidence, prosecutors have made their penalty requests for 15 crew members for charges of negligence of duty and violation of maritime law, which demands they should have been the last to leave the ship. The crew was accused of fleeing the ship without evacuating hundreds of passengers left on board, but repeatedly instructing them to stay put in their cabins. After prosecutors indicted 4 senior crew members, including Captain Lee Jun-seok in May, on charges of murder by willful negligence, the public's attention has been focused on whether they would be handed the death penalty. Prior to Monday's session, Captain Lee was said to have wished for punishment, admitting to all of the charges against him, with the exception of murder. Some families of the victims who were in the gallery for Monday's session had earlier pleaded for the defendants to be charged with the maximum penalty possible. Sentences are expected to be issued in the 3rd week of next month. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Public servants here in Korea are upset over a proposed revision to their pension system. The ruling Saenuri Party announced possible changes to the Public Servant Pension Act on Monday, which includes a revision to the recipient age from the current 60 up to 65 by the year 2031. The move comes less than 2 weeks after the government proposed a draft plan in a bid to reduce the government's pension deficit, which is on a steady rise due to Korea's aging society. Around 1 million public servants are expected to go on strike on November 1st in opposition to the plans. A forum that revolves around one of President Park Geun-hye's signature initiatives gets started this Tuesday here in Korea. As the name implies, the Northeast Asia Peace and Cooperation Forum aims to promote peace and cooperation in the region. The 3-day event will cover a range of issues from nuclear safety and energy security to conservation efforts and disaster preparedness. Officials from all members of the six-party talks aimed at denuclearizing North Korea will attend, save for one. That exception is North Korea itself, which had been invited to participate but never responded. Pyongyang has been critical of the forum, calling it a maneuver against the communist regime. North Korea will not be attending this week's peace forum, and there are growing questions as to whether they will be attending planned high-level talks with South Korea this week as well. North Korea has lodged another protest against anti-Pyongyang leaflets being flown by South Korean activists. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Responding to North Korea's protest against the latest anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaign, South Korea on Monday urged the North to come to a planned second round of high-level talks.
We maintain the stance that the government has no legal grounds to ban activities by civic groups. North Korea should give its answer to our proposed date and place for the second round of high-level talks, which the two Koreas have previously agreed on.
2 weeks have passed since South Korea proposed holding the talks on October 30th at the border village of Panmunjom. Remaining mum on that offer, the North claimed Sunday that although a daytime leaflet launch on Saturday was scrapped, the South Korean government turned a blind eye to a group of activists who sent about 20,000 leaflets that night. It warned that high-level talks will not be held under the current atmosphere. Experts say the planned meeting could be postponed indefinitely.
Unless the South Korean government shows a firm determination to prevent further leaflet campaigns or North Korea promises never to bring up the issue again, the possibility of talks between the two sides is very low.
A group of South Korean activists says it will send more anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border this Thursday. And experts say the question of whether the government decides to step in this time or not will determine the direction of inter-Korean relations down the road. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says he has no intention of revising the 1993 Kono Statement, which acknowledged Japan's sexual enslavement of women during World War II. Abe's remarks came Monday during a meeting with the Speaker of Korea's National Assembly, Chung Eui-hwa, who is on a 3-day visit to Japan. The Kono Statement was based on the accounts of 16 Korean victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery. Tokyo drew widespread criticism earlier this year for reviewing the statement. Following talks, Chung and Prime Minister Abe said they look forward to bettering relations moving forward, as next year marks the 50th anniversary of the two nations establishing diplomatic ties. President Park Geun-hye has expressed hopes to the governor of the U.S. state of Virginia that his latest visit to Korea will help strengthen economic cooperation between their two countries. Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, who plans to visit a number of Korean companies during his stay here, said during their meeting on Monday that he is seeking to increase investment between Korea and Virginia. Governor McAuliffe played a key role in implementing a dual-name system for the body of water between Korea and Japan in Virginia school textbooks earlier this year. In March, Virginia became the first U.S. state to use the Korean name EC alongside the Japanese name Sea of Japan in textbooks. The U.S. Fed is expected to announce its exit from its monetary stimulus this week. And according to the IMF, Korea could be the hardest hit in Asia if there is a sudden change in U.S. interest rates. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The International Monetary Fund says Korea could take the heaviest blow among the countries in Asia if the U.S. exit from quantitative easing sparks a sudden rise in U.S. interest rates. Romain Duval, the IMF's head of the Regional Studies Division of the Asia-Pacific Department, says that it is quite possible that Asia's fourth-largest economy will experience a shock as a result of the changes in U.S. monetary policy because Korea is vulnerable to external shifts. He says the impact will likely lead to a capital flight and a slowdown in exports to the United States. The IMF predicts Korea's growth rate could drop by nearly 1 percentage point if the U.S. interest rate were to rise suddenly, a move that's expected if the U.S. Federal Reserve announces an end to its multi-billion-dollar bond buying program when it meets later this week. Other Asian countries are likely to experience smaller changes. India's growth rate is expected to drop by less than 0.2 percentage point. But despite the dismal outlook for Korea, Duval says there's no need to panic just yet. The effects of the impact will be minimized because Seoul is able to utilize its financial and monetary policies to deal with external changes. Duval says it all comes down to how the Korean government handles the effects of the rise in the U.S. interest interest rate, saying it should pursue austerity measures and let its currency depreciate in the event of capital outflows. The IMF says the Korean economy could drop into the low 3% range following a U.S. interest rate hike, while Seoul projects the economy will grow to around 4% next year. Kim Jeong, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Korea's economic chiefs are downplaying the IMF's concerns. Bank of Korea Governor Lee Joo-yeol says a drastic hike in U.S. interest rates is unlikely. Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan said the capital outflow will be limited given Korea's ample foreign currency reserves, current account surpluses, and fiscal soundness. And time now for a look through the international headlines we're following this Tuesday morning. For that, we'll turn to our Hyunjin Kim standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Scott. New York City is monitoring a 5-year-old boy for a possible Ebola infection after he developed symptoms consistent with the hemorrhagic disease. He was rushed to Bellevue Hospital on Sunday evening local time by emergency personnel in protective equipment, and he developed a high fever the very next day. He was tested for Ebola as well as other diseases. It is unclear whether he had come into contact with anyone infected with Ebola while he and his family were in Guinea, from which they returned within the past 21 days. City officials say others in the same home were ordered to self-quarantine themselves. Meanwhile, an American nurse who had served in Sierra Leone is finally on her way back home to Maine. She was released from her weekend-long mandatory quarantine at a New Jersey hospital despite testing negative to Ebola. Casey Hickox has been outspoken against the routine 21-day quarantine measure targeting all travelers from Ebola-affected countries in West Africa. She and her human rights lawyer said they would file a federal lawsuit against the measure. Hong Kong police are poised and ready to arrest protesters who ignore the injunctions ordering a clearance to parts of the financial hub's thoroughfares in Admiralty and Mong Kok. That's what Barrister Jin Pao, on behalf of the government, told Hong Kong's High Court as it considered whether to extend the interim injunctions granted last week to taxi drivers, minibus owners, and a skyscraper owner. Pao said it was not the intention of the Secretary for Justice to enter into the arena, while saying he said police would not hesitate to maintain order when demonstrators assemble unlawfully and cause serious traffic congestion. South Africans awoke to devastating news on Monday. The country's star football captain, Senzo Meyiwa, had been shot dead during a burglary. The South African police service said 2 men had entered his girlfriend's house in Vosloorus, south of Johannesburg, around 8 p.m. on Sunday, demanding mobile phones and valuables. The 27-year-old goalkeeper is being mourned as a humble hero who rose from a tough background and was at the prime of his career. Meyiwa had played for the Orlando Pirates and had contributed to his team's advance to the semifinals in the South African League Cup as recently as Saturday. And wrapping up with some industry news, U.S. President Barack Obama is ramping up support for his country's advanced manufacturing sector with a planned series of executive actions. Among them is a $300 million investment to be poured into 3 key emerging technologies, such as composites, bio-based materials, and digital manufacturing. Others will partner with the initiative meant to boost the country's industrial competitiveness, including establishing research centers by the National Science Foundation and running grant competitions by the Labor and Commerce departments.
On the sidelines of the International Telecommunication Union Conference in the southern port city of Busan, the Health IT Show opened on Monday with the latest in healthcare technologies in the spotlight. And as with so many other technological developments, the newest medical devices involve so-called smart features. Our Shin Se-min reports from Busan.
Forget the hard, lumpy beds you find in most hospitals. Smart beds like these provide patients with a more comfortable experience.
With this bed, patients can monitor and adjust temperatures and level of humidity in their rooms. It also measures every move of a patient thanks to a non-contact sensors in the bed, giving doctors and nurses valuable information, especially during emergencies.
The smart devices in the healthcare system don't just end there. It goes way beyond. Smart technology is also enabling patients to keep track of their own blood pressure and diabetes at home.
And we, as doctors in hospitals, we need to recognize that patients are smart and they have the ability to look at information, learn about themselves. We need to encourage that. We need to help them learn about their health so they can stay healthy and so they can control their chronic conditions and stay out of the hospitals. Once they're sick, sure, we can do a lot of great technology things in the hospitals. But again, we need to move things to the left. We need to keep people out of the hospitals.
Calling Korea a hotbed of technology, Dr. Sun said the country should take advantage of new technologies to make the healthcare system more efficient.
You know, there are too many patients that need to be seen, and there are not enough doctors. Doctors need to not be so insecure. I should get to the point where I'm taking care of patients for more than 5 minutes, maybe for 15 or 20 or even 30 minutes. We're not helping patients effectively by taking care of them 5 minutes at a time.
Looking forward to the day he can spend more time examining his patients, Dr. Sun said he hopes healthcare systems evolve to provide higher quality treatment over the coming years. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Busan.
And in this next report, we see how Korea's healthcare industry is seeking to incorporate technology into its medical services. Our Kim Min-ji takes us to a local hospital that's demonstrating how Google Glass can be used in the emergency room.
This patient has just been hit by a car and is bleeding severely from his head. An ambulance worker puts on a smart, wearable device and starts recording what he sees. And this can be seen from the hospital emergency room.
혈압이 낮으면 수액을 먼저 다는 게 어떨까 싶은데. 예, 혈관 확보하겠습니다. 허락해 주십시오. 네, 알겠습니다. 허가하겠습니다. IV 수액을 지금 투여하십시오. 예, 알겠습니다.
In the 15 minutes it takes to get to the hospital, the paramedic follows the directions of the doctor while hospital staff prepare the necessary medical equipment for the patient. It's a scene that could be from a movie but is part of a smart emergency medical service demonstration by Myeongji Hospital in Goyang, the first of its kind in Korea. Using state-of-the-art technology, in this case the Google Glass, which enables real-time video communication, the service aims to provide the best possible response in the shortest amount of time for patients that could be in critical condition.
Google Glass allows doctors to see the exact condition of the patient and therefore allows for clearer and more effective treatments. The paramedic is also less burdened as they have both hands free to use when attending to the patient.
In this situation, Google Glass enables doctors to not only check medical records of patients, but also lets them view X-rays and CT and MRI scans just by scanning a QR code that's loaded with the patient's details. Officials at Myeongji Hospital hope to later adopt the technology in all areas of the hospital, from wards and outpatient clinics to operating rooms. However, there are some obstacles they will have to clear beforehand. Not only will the system be costly to adopt, Google Glass first needs to be authorized for medical use in Korea. Security issues are another concern, as the device can currently only be connected by Wi-Fi, and not all of the data exchanged may be encrypted. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off in football, where the president of the Korea Football Association, Chung Mong-gyu, declared his intention to run for a seat in the FIFA Executive Committee on Monday. In a letter written to the members of the Asian Football Confederation, the 52-year-old expresses gratitude for their unending efforts in the development of Asian football as he sent his intention to run for a seat in the FIFA Executive Committee. Chung, who was elected as the president of the KFA back in 2013, previously owned 3 K-League teams and has been involved with football for the past 2 decades. Now, shortly after figure queen Kim Yeon-ah retired from the sport earlier this year, fans wondered who will become the next figure skating star here in Korea. Well, Park So-yeon is still young, but certainly off to a great start. The 17-year-old, who previously competed in junior competitions, made her Grand Prix debut over the weekend and finished impressively in 5th place overall after scoring 55.74 during the short program and 114.69 in the free skating program for a total of 170.43 points. Park, who has been getting pointers from Kim Yeon-ah prior to the Grand Prix, hopes to continue to grow with the Pyeongchang Winter Games taking place in 2018. And speaking of following footsteps, after a successful transition from the KBO to the major leagues by LA Dodgers pitcher Ryu Hyunjin, Kim Kwang-hyun has expressed his desire to play for a major league team. And on Monday, his team, the SK Wyverns, announced that he will be posted this winter. Now, with the 26-year-old lefty completing his 7th year in the KBO, he's eligible to test the overseas market through the posting system, which Ryu Hyunjin also went through before signing with the LA Dodgers back in 2012. The SK Wyverns ace, who finished with a record of 13-9 with an ERA of 3.42 this past season, hopes to become just the 3rd KBO pitcher to move from the KBO to the majors, as he's set to hold a press conference on Wednesday to formally announce his decision. And staying in the KBO, but over to Game 1 of the best-of-7 second-round playoff series between the LG Twins and the Nexen Heroes, which took place in Mokdong Stadium on Monday. And taking a look at the highlights here, second inning, bases loaded for Park Hwan-do, singles to left center, but only 1 runner scores, and it's 1-0 Nexen. By the 3rd inning of the game, LG also gets the bases loaded as Park Yong-taek singles to left, ties the ballgame at 1-1. Before Lee Byung-gyu singles home another before 2 runners are called out as the LG Twins take a 2-1 lead. 4th inning, Brad Snyder, first pitch he sees, gone, and the LG Twins take a 3-1 lead. But the 6th inning, here come the Nexen Heroes. Lee Sung-yeol, RBI single to right, makes it 3-2 before Yoon Sung-min here to pinch it at bat. He's going to drill this ball to deep right, gone, a pinch hit 3-run shot, and the Nexen Heroes take the lead 5-3. Now Nexen bullpen does the rest here as Nexen Heroes win Game 1, 6-3. And now finishing things off, we go over to Game 5 of the 2014 World Series between the Kansas City Royals and the San Francisco Giants, with the series tied 2-2. Despite a great game from the Royals star James Shields, Madison Bumgarner was even better for the Giants as he continues his postseason success, throwing a complete game shutout, giving up just 4 hits in the entire game. The Giants lineup does the rest here as they beat the Royals 5-0 and are now 1 win away from winning their 3rd championship in 5 years. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, if you felt yesterday morning was quite chilly, be sure to dress warmer today. The lows have even dropped lower than yesterday. I mean, it feels like early winter this morning as the current temperatures are just above 4 degrees Celsius here in Seoul, and the highs will get up to similar to what it was like yesterday. But the full autumn sun will be shining down on us throughout the day, so it's going to be another delightful, bright, but cool day across the nation. Also beware that the dry weather advisory is in place for some parts of the eastern areas. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the morning low here in Seoul should start out at 5. The daytime high will be topping out at 17, while Daegu and Busan climbing into 20, and Gwangju will be rising to 21 later in the day. Now, for other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will be making to 19 and 18 respectively, while Dokdo see highs of 14 this afternoon. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that's going to do it for now. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.